क्या चल रहा है अभी जम्मू कश्मीर एंड वायलेंस भी बढ़ी है अभी.
Used to the local politicians saying ये जम्मू के इलाके से आर्म्ड फोर्सेस स्पेशल पावर्स एक्ट हटा दो. So some forces were removed and sent on the China border. So suddenly China flared up. Now China required a much larger force. There was a little vacuum created and the Pakis were waiting for it.
Okay.
They were watching it. ये तो खाली हो गया.
चाइना और पाकिस्तान का कोई एक नेक्सस है.
जब कोई नया पार पैदा होना शुरू होता है, there are many others who will work to make sure that it doesn't rise.
लद्दाख में आपने आई थिंक दोनों सीनो चाइनीज एंड पाकिस्तानीज दोनों को फेस किया है. क्या डिफरेंस है चाइना और पाकिस्तान की आर्मी में?
पाकिस्तान का बॉर्डर था ना, वो तो हॉट बॉर्डर, इतना हॉट है कि उसमें कारगिल था और सियाचिन ग्लेशियर है. वहाँ पे 21,000 की फीट पे जहाँ पे लोग माउंटेनियरिंग करने से कराते हैं, हमारे लोग बैठे हैं. बिकॉज minute you vacate it, he'll come and sit down. You can't take a respite on the Paki border because उन पे विश्वास नहीं किया जा सकता.
15 जून 2020 में जो गलवान वैली में हुआ, वो क्यों हुआ?
Razum Rajan said, any inch of territory left to me by my forefathers will not be left.
कोई भी हमारी एक इंच जमीन पर भी आंख उठाकर नहीं देख.
पहले तो हमारा चाइना के साथ कोई बॉर्डर होता ही नहीं था. हमारा तो बॉर्डर तिब्बत के साथ था ना. चाइना से कौन सा बॉर्डर था हमारे साथ? अब चाइनीज बोलते हैं एक 1959 लाइन बॉर्डर है. वो 59 लाइन कहाँ से आई? आप अपने आप बैठ के मैप में लाइन बना दोगे, बोलो जी हमारा बॉर्डर. ऐसे थोड़ी होता है.
कोविड में चाइना की लग गई.
हमारे में क्या है ना, हमारा एक 1% डाइज, we carry him on his head. We become, we take him to his village and we do the ceremony. Chinese वहीं बरी कर देते हैं.
आर्मी की जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, मिलिट्री ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, वो बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है. वी हैव स्क्वाड, वी हैव कोर, वी हैव रेजिमेंट्स. तो क्या फ़र्क होता है इनमें?
सो पहले तो आर्मी, नेवी, एयरफोर्स की तीनों की ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अलग अलग है. इनको एक तरीके में बांध कर नहीं रखा जा सकता. दे सेपरेट. बट वी आर प्रेजेंट टॉकिंग आर्मी.
ओके.
नाउ द आर्मी, देयर इज अ बेसिक यूनिट ऑफ वर्क.
ओके.
एक यूनिट इज लाइक office, you can say it's one unit.
Okay.
So there is a Sikh regiment, big regiment,
okay.
But the Sikh regiment will have a unit called, say, 5 Sikh. So 5 Sikh becomes a basic unit, ek unit.
Okay.
I'm talking about presently of infantry.
Okay.
That unit is about, say, 800 to 850 people.
Okay.
And it would have 4 companies, viable companies. It would have some kind of headquarter company, etc. But 4 viable companies.
Okay.
And it would have its own topkhana, its own machine guns. Everything is part of a unit. So unit is a self-contained body.
Okay.
We work on units, battalions.
Okay.
जब आप CRPF की बात करते हो ना, तो they talk about companies.
Okay.
We task is given to a commanding officer.
Okay.
The most sacred appointment in the Indian Army is of a CO, a commanding officer, a full colonel. He commands. He does.
Okay.
He in the end all. So basically एक यूनिट से स्टार्ट करो. एंड उसकी यूनिट के नीचे उसने अपने हिस्से बांटे हुए हैं. 3-4 कंपनीज. देयर विल बी ईच कंपनी विल हैव 3 platoons and 3 sections. Okay, leave all that alone.
Okay.
3 of these battalions make a brigade.
ठीक है.
He is commanded by a brigadier.
Okay.
Brigadier is the first flag rank. He wears a 1 star and he, so he's a brigadier. 3 units, normally 3, कभी 4 भी हो सकते हैं.
ठीक है.
And a brigade, 3 of these brigades make something called a division.
Okay.
A division is a self-contained body.
Okay.
After a unit, a division. A division is an infantry division, a mountain division, an armored division, tank division. So divisions are of various types.
Okay.
But that division has 3 brigades plus an artillery brigade.
Okay.
Added to it. So it becomes a composite. उस डिवीजन में हर चीज़ है. उसका अपना तोप खाना है, उसकी अपनी सप्लाई यूनिट है, अपनी ऑर्डिनेंस यूनिट है, अपने रिपेयर वर्कशॉप्स हैं. सो एवरीथिंग इज कंटेन्ड इन टू अ डिविजन. सो अ डिविजन इज टास्क्ड टू फाइट ऑन इट्स ओन, अलोन. Because they have self-contained. They are not dependent to look backwards कि मेरा सप्लाई कहाँ है, all that. He'll manage it.
Okay.
2 to 3 of these divisions make a core. And now here we spend core, as you said, CORPS. No, see, all these organizations were made initially by Napoleon.
Correct.
in the 17th, 18th century.
Okay.
Napoleon, when the Napoleonic Wars, French Revolution, the organization started coming up in that time. And Napoleon was the father of many of the organizations. And generally, they stick to that guns.
ठीक है.
So, that corps has 3 divisions.
Okay.
And the division, 2 to 3 corps make a command.
Okay.
Now, commands are fixed, like Northern Command, Eastern Command. They are all geographic basis.
ठीक है.
Now, that's an infantry. Now, there are other parts. An artillery unit, basic unit, commanding officer, like I said, they're called a regiment. They're not called a battalion.
Okay.
Infantry is a battalion.
Okay.
Artillery is a regiment. A regiment would have 18 guns. It could be variety of 105 mm or 155 mm. So there are, or rockets or whatever. So there is an artillery regiment.
Okay.
And they have also a commanding officer. An artillery topkhana. As you see Kargil war mein, the firing being done by artillery. That artillery. One artillery brigade unit, actually 3 to 4, maybe sometimes 5 units combined to make an artillery brigade.
Okay.
Like infantry के 3 थे ना, इनके 4-5 हो जाते हैं.
ठीक है.
Well, they have a rocket regiment, etc. Or they have a surveillance acquisition regiment or something.
अच्छा.
So 5 regiment हो गई, makes 1 brigade. That brigade comes to a division.
Okay.
So that brigade. So artillery. Now there is armored. Tanks, tanks and mechanized vehicles.
Mechanized.
So they have their own brigade, same units, same armored brigades, same armored divisions, and so a hierarchy. Then there are some loose units. One armored regiment can be given to an infantry division, say for task purpose. So there, but largely speaking, this is the organization that takes place.
Okay.
So the commands, which is the last fighting formation, Northern Command Udhampur mein, Central Command in Lucknow,
Okay.
Western Command which looks after the West is in Chandi Mandir, and then Southwestern Command in Jaipur, and Southern Command is in Pune,
Okay.
and then there is one command in Calcutta,
Okay.
Kolkata, which looks after the eastern states. So Calcutta wali Eastern Command will have 3 corps. Each corps will have 3 divisions. Each division will have 3 brigades, and 3 brigades will have so many units. So it's actually, if you want to get onto it, it's not tiresome. It is simple thing.
अच्छा, let's understand on this way. If there's an intrusion on the border, मानते हैं कि fist fight होता है.
Yeah.
So who's the unit?
So what happens is that 2 तरह की units हैं. एक है strike course, एक है holding a pivot course. मतलब जिनका एक का काम है जो defend करना border को, एक का काम है जो strike करना, मतलब enemy territory में जाना.
ठीक है.
So there are different types. They are trained differently, they are organized differently. So the borders, what happens is we are a very peculiar country. We have very difficult borders. 3,500 kilometer China border is a tough border.
Yes.
And 3,500 kilometer is Pakistan border, which is as tough a border.
Yeah.
And then there is 7,500 kilometers of the maritime border. So we have
Yes.
tough borders.
Yes.
And 2 adversaries who say they are adversaries, बोलते हैं हम adversary हैं. तो you can't compare us with any other country like that. We are peculiarly done. Now there is one border called line of control, which is Pakistan. The line of actual control, which is with Chinese.
Yes.
The line of actual control was a peaceful border comparatively after 62 war. It has become non-peaceful in last 4 years.
Correct.
But line of control has been without peace right from beginning.
Very active.
Very active. 700 kilometers of line of control starts close to Jammu and finishes nearly 770 kilometers something to short of Siachen base, and then 122 kilometers of the Siachen glacier. So you say that वो जो ये border था ना, line of control was decided in after Shimla agreement. If you recollect 1972, Indira Gandhi and Bhutto signed the agreement. उसके बाद they got 2 generals together, one army was General Bhagat and was General Hamid from Pakistan. They sat down, inch by inch marked the entire territory, and they created a line of control.
Okay.
And there was a connotation of holders keepers. जिसने जो बैठी उसके बाद जो जिसने occupy कर लिया उसका हो गया. So that kind of connotation. So a unit, an infantry unit, tends to get an area of responsibility.
Okay.
One area.
Okay.
Now that area can be 20 kilometers, it could be 30, it could be 10. It is depending on the threat pattern, what kind of operations are perceived from that side, what kind of operations you tend to carry out there. Some areas are so tough, line of control, there is infiltration possibility, so it is so dense. So ek jagah pe, in line of control, there are posts all along the border, because they are also protecting not only the border, the line of control, they are also protecting infiltration that takes place. Yeah. So if something happens there, that unit, now, say my battalion, 511 GR, I'm from Gurkhas.
Yeah.
That battalion is responsible, say, for 25 kilometers.
Okay.
It would have, it will divide the 25 kilometers to various companies. It may have some BSF unit under it also, Border Security Force, so that additional people. And it is post by post, depending on where to be deployed, they are deployed. So a post commander, it could be a JCO, it could be an officer who manages that post. So anything that happens there, it happens, that man gets responsible. But basic responsibilities of the commanding officer, CO, who has the responsibility of 25 kilometers. Now, same thing you can take it across to line of control, line of actual control, China side. It's a much tougher border. The altitudes are much higher.
Yeah.
So there are passes. So there are high mountains and there are passes. Passes are the places where you can cross across and come. So you are protecting these passes. You're also protecting the high mountains. And anything happens, that man on the ground, which is part of a small team, it could be a platoon, 30 men or 35 men. It could be a company of 150 men. All part of that battalion get responsible for that task.
Okay.
So that battalion. A battalion would also have inbuilt reserves, which are not deployed. So see, something happens, like what do you remember? 2 years ago, something happened in Yangtze. Yangtze was in Tawang ke upar. Chinese came and there was some gutha and fisticuffs. Then that unit commander had some spare reserves. So he moved his reserves just immediately thereafter to counter the Chinese.
शायद गोलियां भी चली थी वहाँ पे.
Firing took place firing has not taken place on Chinese border for quite some time.
2020 के बाद.
No, firing. 2020 mein, there was those crude weapons used. People died, 20 of them, but not by firing, but by use of crude weapons. Dando pe laga ke keele, those kind of Chinese, those weird things. So, the responsibility comes to that man on the ground there. Then there are bigger reserves, core, like I've commanded the corps in Ladakh.
Okay.
So I had larger reserves. So could be a brigade, could be a division reserve. So I have a division means 10 to 15,000 men. So I have 15,000 men uncommitted who are ready to do a task. So there is that kind of reserves available.
Okay.
So each one of these deployed people have got some backup, warmth behind it.
Okay.
It is kind of a reserve kept, and the reserve is very important because reserve actually does major work, either to counter what the adversary is doing or to open a new front.
Okay.
So that kind of a system.
I think you said you were a part of the Gorkhas and you were in the valley, I think at a time 90 to 96.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most difficult time in the history of valley.
So true. See, 90s was a very tough time. Till 2001, it was a very tough time. In 2001, there were thousands of people killed. It was a very difficult time.
क्या होता था on ground reality क्या थी?
So reality ये थी कि the fence was not existing.
अच्छा.
Fence came up in 2004.
अच्छा.
2004 से border open था. मतलब there is, it's just open. You're holding posts, and the Pakis had a whole lot of reserve who were created from their, Afghanistan problem, which got sorted out. After the USSR got disintegrated, there were a whole lot of weapons and equipment which Pakistanis were conduit to supply to Taliban and to those to the Mujahideen, got spared to them. And their whole lot of people that they were training to be pushed into Afghanistan got suddenly surplus. अगर वो अपनी country में रखते तो अपनी country का सत्यानाश करते. So they had to do something else. Now they said, okay, weapons, get hold of people who are being trained as Mujahideen and push them this side. So they shifted people in 1990-91 towards the Indian side of the border. That was the arrival of a foreign terrorist.
क्योंकि fence नहीं था.
Fence नहीं था, and the area is so tough. It's snow,
Yes.
highly snowbound. It are very high mountains, and then there are also passes, gullies, and then there are locals who know the way to go across. So there were guides available.
अच्छा.
And then what he would do is that if there are two posts, so he will fire artillery on both posts, put them down, put your head down, so that at that time he could infiltrate people. So these kind of tactics were being done, and there was infiltration in numbers. So the encounters that happened in that time between, say, 1991 to 2001, 10 years period, very tough.
And local support भी था.
And local support was there. There were people who could guide the incoming people. They used to get messages, so they'll go across, guide those people, bring them here. Then they will disintegrate and go to very small pockets and IEDs and all these things. So those were tough times.
I think अभी जम्मू कश्मीर में आर्टिकल 370 के बाद अभी फर्स्ट लेजिस्लेटिव इलेक्शंस हुए, एंड आई थिंक NC led and Congress, the alliance, they've emerged victorious, and we have a new CM from the National Conference, I think, Omar Abdullah. तो क्या चल रहा है अभी जम्मू कश्मीर, एंड वायलेंस भी बढ़ी है अभी, एंड दैट टू इन अ पार्ट इन द जम्मू जो कंपैरेटिवली पहले काफ़ी पीसफुल था.
So Rajan, what happens is that the deployment of forces is dynamic nature. When you see an area has got lesser salience or reference or lesser terrorism, then you shuttle forces to areas where they're more required. Everything is finite. The resources are finite. You don't have a whole lot of spare units lying everywhere else. So you have to. So over a period of time, south of Pir Panjab, which is Jammu region, it was turned out to be relatively peaceful in comparison to the Kashmir Valley.
Yes.
So over a period of time, it was felt that we could ease off. In fact, there was a clamor. The local politicians were saying, "Ye Jammu ke ilake se Armed Forces Special Powers Act hata do," because it was so peaceful. I mean, there was nothing happening much. Last incident, an odd incident doesn't matter at all. So some forces were removed from there.
Okay.
And sent on the China border, because suddenly China flared up. Now China required a much larger force. So there was a little vacuum created, and the Pakis were waiting for it.
Okay.
They were watching it. ये तो खाली हो गया. अब जब खाली हो गया तो बोला इसको let's incite it. So what happened in the course of this year, maybe after April, May, was that there has been a general pushing in people. Now, where have they been pushed in? They can come also from the international border side, where it is down south, from Punjab or Rajasthan, somewhere, infiltrate and then push them upwards. So, or drop weapons by drones, etc. Or tunnels, they have been found. So, there are various methods they pushed in people, and this pushed in people caused a little bit of problem. 5, 6 incidents happened in May, June, July. By that time, it was clear that there is an additional infiltration and this is going to be serious. Now, we were able to create the reserves and push them back into this area. So, relatively, after the month of July, August, things have become eased out, because we have now forces deployed here. That void which was there, which was created after 2020 till 2024, has been now filled in. So it was, it is typical a cat and mouse game. You vacate something, that fellow will watching it, and he pushes somebody there and does one or two terrorist actions against that. So that void had to be filled in, and we have been able to do that now.
So you're saying that ये थोड़ा temporary सा एक phase था.
Yeah.
And you've said कि वहाँ से vacate किया गया. तो do you think इसमें कुछ इंडिया, चाइना और पाकिस्तान का कोई एक नेक्सस है? ये एक planned move था to get the distraction?
No, see, what happened in the Chinese front is a separate issue, and we can debate it. That's a separate issue altogether. But to say that they don't collude together to tie the Indian armed forces down is not right. It is absolutely right. What happens is that it is not a question of border alone.
Okay.
For the Chinese, it's a question, as they say, one tiger on a mountain. That's what Chinese say. They can't have two tigers on a mountain.
Correct.
You can have two superpowers in the world, which is United States and China, but you can't have two great powers or two big powers in Asia. That is not acceptable to them.
Okay.
And obviously, India is in a growth path.
Okay.
You know, we are rising. We have potential. Everybody's clear. World says कि they just have to get out of their potential and convert it into reality. India has miles to go. So that will be a more geopolitical irritant to the Chinese. They would hate the idea of allowing one more competitor to arise in this region. Border and territory is another manifestation of all that is happening. So that's what the Chinese have been trying. In best way is to keep pumping in their good friend. Deeper than seas and deeper than the oceans, higher than the mountains is their good friendship with the Pakis. So they can always say, okay, you know, now these forces which were moved from Jammu region to Ladakh has created a void, so why don't you exploit it? And Pakistan, despite being in such dire strait, economically gone, just a $7 billion loan IMF given recently.
Very poor economic state.
Very poor economy, and then, but they still have the thing of pushing in some people and creating ruckus. They also probably wanted to disturb the elections. It was election related, you know, just to show to the world that, you know, elections are not peaceful and they're not happening. And they thought they will be, elections will be called off or postponed or something like that, saying that their issue about 370 has been vindicated. It failed actually.
But I think there was approximately 63.45% voter turnout this time.
So at the third phase was over 70%. We aggregated to 64% nearly.
Yes.
But
it happened in 3 phases. Yes.
It happened 3 phases.
Yes.
So the third phase 70. It is exceedingly good. In the Lok Sabha election, 4-5 महीने पहले हुआ लोक सभा इलेक्शन, तो टोटल वोटेज है 58%. और जो इस स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के इलेक्शन में इट्स ऑलरेडी 64%. 6% rise, substantial rise for as a percentage, and I think the foreigners have been there. What else is required in a state when you have foreigners who are visiting openly across into very country and diplomats and then certifying or saying so, yeah, this is the fairest of things which has happened. And you know, it's BJP didn't win. He got a lot of seats, but didn't win the election.
It's in the main opposition.
Yeah, main opposition. But the NC and the Congress won it, and so it gives rise to the fact that despite everything, we have a bubbling democracy. You know, it stands out that a democracy is vibrant.
Correct. Let's turn towards the Chinese and talk about it. 15 June 2020 में जो गलवान वैली में हुआ, वो क्यों हुआ?
सो राजन, उसको एक अगेन एक तो मैंने बताया कि चाइना के जियोपॉलिटिकल इश्यूज हैं. दे आर राइजिंग. दे आर 5 times लार्जर देन अस इकोनॉमिकली. उनका $18 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी है, हम अभी $4 ट्रिलियन पहुंचने वाले हैं. एंड दे आर द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पावर हाउस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. इन अभी रिसेंटली SP रिपोर्ट आया ऑस्ट्रेलिया से विच सेज दैट ऑफ द 64 cutting edge technologies, China is a leader in 57, even beyond United States, including issues like AI, quantum, etc. So SP report is very informative. Now, एक तो है कि वो किसी को कोई और पार को यहाँ पर रेस नहीं कर सकते. दूसरी बात है कि उन्होंने हिस्टोरिकली, पहले तो हमारा चाइना के साथ कोई बॉर्डर होता ही नहीं था. हमारा तो बॉर्डर तिब्बत के साथ था ना. चाइना से कौन सा बॉर्डर था हमारे साथ?
करेक्ट.
अब चाइनीज बोलते हैं एक 1959 लाइन बॉर्डर है. वो 59 लाइन कहाँ से आई? आप अपने आप बैठ के मैप में लाइन बना दोगे, बोलो जी हमारा बॉर्डर. ऐसे थोड़ी होता है. वी इनहेरिटेड अ लाइन ऑन द बॉर्डर विच द ब्रिटिश एंड द टिबेटियंस हैड signed McMahon line, which is Arunachal Pradesh. And then they had a line which we call Johnson line, which Johnson was a governor of Ladakh region. Okay. And he went and drew a border line, and they said it was acceptable to the Tibetans. And so Soviet, so there was a line which we inherited.
Correct.
So we inherit. They didn't have a border with us. तो उन्होंने क्या इनहेरिट किया? तो उन्होंने बस 59 में एक कोई लाइन बनाई, चावन लाइन है, और वो बोल दिया जी हमारी लाइन हुई. उसके बाद दे फॉट अ वॉर. अभी वो जागो मोहन प्यारे अभी जाग गए हैं, और इतने सालों के बाद 59-60 के बाद अभी बोलते हैं जी हम तो 59 लाइन चाहते हैं. तो 1959 लाइन की तो कोई लीगल स्टेटस ही नहीं है. तो व्हाई द हेल आर यू आस्किंग फॉर 1959 लाइन? So what they did, started doing when President Xi took over. President Xi is a communist of the communist order, hard blood,
Okay.
pre-Deng Xiaoping.
Okay.
Unlike the Deng culture or Jiang Zemin or Hu Jintao, who were more capitalists than they were communists, he is more communist in nature.
Okay.
And he said, any inch of territory left to me by my forefathers will not be left alone. We will take it on. But forefathers just decided a line doesn't mean that's your line. Na? So 2013 he started off. 2013 he came first time. He took over as a president in 2013 in March. And month of April he went and came to an area and blocked us. Now what was happening is the line of actual control is, a line means a line. एक लाइन होती है, दो पार्टीज के बीच की लाइन. आपका घर है, मेरा घर है, बीच में लाइन है.
वहाँ पे कोई लाइन नहीं है.
वहाँ पे कोई लाइन नहीं है.
It's all disputed.
It is, see, the line is a matter of imagination.
Correct.
So 1993 में हमने एक ट्रीटी साइन की थी, पीस एंड ट्रैंक्विलिटी, प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरसिम्हा राव के टाइम पे. उस टाइम पे लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल शब्द आया, और ये सोचा गया कि इसके बाद में दोनों पार्टी आपस में मिल बैठ के एक लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल डिवाइस करेंगे. बिकॉज बहुत सारी लाइंस हैं, 19th सेंचुरी से एक लाइन है, कोई लाइन है, वॉर लाइन है, तो एक लाइन डिसाइड करेंगे. उसके फाउंडेशन पे एक लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल वर्ड शुरू हुआ 1993 में. उसके बाद हमने कई ट्रीटी साइन की 96 में, 2005 में, 2012 में, 2013 में. उसमें हमने कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डिंग मेजर लाए कि भाई दो पार्टीज आएंगी, आपस में लड़ेंगे, वापस चले जाएंगे,
फायरिंग नहीं होगी.
फायरिंग नहीं होगी. इट वाज वेरी पीसफुल अक्रॉस दिस, but line of actual control didn't get decided. So we have a word came up, perception. भाई मेरा लाइन ये है और मेरा परसेप्शन है चाइनीज का लाइन ये है. परसेप्शन मतलब चाइनीज ने बताया नहीं हमको क्या कौन सी लाइन है उनकी. वी आर परसीविंग. तो जब हम एक इलाके में हमारी जो लाइन हम पेट्रोल करते थे, तो चाइनीज यूज्ड टू कम एंड दे यूज्ड टू फाइट विद अस एंड दे सेड यू आर 6 kilometers inside a territory. So we, who knows what line was? Na? There was a confusion here. 2013 में पहली बार वो हमारे जहाँ पे हम पेट्रोलिंग करते थे वहाँ पर आके बैठ के ब्लॉक कर दिया. और जब हमने बैनर दिखाया कि भैया वापस जाओ, ये हमारा इलाका है, तो वापस नहीं गए. उस टाइम तक वापस चले जाते थे, थोड़ा लड़ाई लुड़ी होती थी, डंडे शंडे चलते थे, फिर वापस चले जाते थे. पर वो दिस टाइम दे डिडंट गो बैक. 2013 वी डिड अ काउंटर एक्शन.
Okay.
In the counter action they got anxious. So there were 22 days standoff. उसके बाद counter action के बाद they withdrew because of the counter pressure that we created. Similar thing happened in end of 2014 up in one area called Chumar, and he was making a road there. We caught hold of it and we used large number of units, battalions like units, or we blocked that area.
Okay.
There was a standoff for 6-7 weeks. Then he withdrew. He also withdrew.
Okay.
So he was planning. Then he did Doklam 2017. In 2017 he came. There was 72 days. But there was third country involved, Bhutan.
Okay.
So he came and sat down in that area. On 72 days he sat down there. And after 72 days there was negotiation. And then of course he didn't withdraw much. But there was amicable settlement. So 2020, the question you're asking, when he came, the build-up was happening behind the scenes over a period of time. So it can't be said. पर एक जगह पे एक रोड है, एक जगह पे वो आ रहा है, मैं आ रहा हूँ, झगड़ा हुआ, वापस चले गए. पर एक ही बार वो 6-7 रोड पे इकट्ठा आ जाए, that's a different thing altogether.
It is a dramatic thing. Yeah.
That's तो जो 2020 में उसने किया, वो उसने उससे पहले कभी नहीं किया था.
अच्छा.
एक जगह पे आता था, झगड़ा होता था, चलो वापस चले जाते थे, हम भी वो भी वापस चले जाता था. पर यहाँ पर वो पूरे ईस्टर्न लद्दाख टोटल बॉर्डर में आ गया, नॉर्थ से लेके डेमचौक तक, which is 800 odd kilometers. And here he refused to go back. He said नहीं जा रहा हूँ मैं वापस. उस चक्कर में 15 जून को गलवान में इंसिडेंट हैपन. दी कमांडिंग ऑफिसर हमारा और उनके कमांडिंग ऑफिसर आपस में वार्तालाप कर रहे थे, बातचीत चल रही थी. यू विल विड्रॉ योर टेंट्स, यू विल रिमूव समथिंग. ही से मैं विड्रॉ करूंगा, पर वो बोल रहे थे, विड्रॉ नहीं कर रहे थे. सो उस वहाँ पे गुत्तम गुत्ता की लड़ाई हुई जिसमें भी लॉस्ट 20 people including a commanding officer Colonel Babu. He also lost large many, you know.
But it's undisclosed.
कोई बोलता है TAS, which is Russian, बोलता है 44. So कोई बोलता है 80. तो कभी बोला नहीं जा सकता कितने हैं. As it is, they hide the casualties. हमारे में क्या है ना, हमारा one person dies, we carry him on his head. We become, we take him to his village and we do the ceremony. Chinese वहीं बरी कर देते हैं, उनका वहीं पे है, because they don't want the public to get anxious of what's happening. Because finally
डेमोक्रेसी है ही नहीं वैसे भी.
कम्युनिज्म है, और कम्युनिज्म में कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी और पीपल का एक सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सा है कि भैया हम आपकी देखभाल करेंगे, आप हमको कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी को गवर्न करने दो. दैट सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ना टूट जाए, वो चक्कर है.
लद्दाख में आपने आई थिंक दोनों सीनो चाइनीज़ एंड पाकिस्तानीज़ दोनों को फेस किया है. क्या डिफरेंस है चाइना और पाकिस्तान की आर्मी में?
सो जो चाइना वाला जो पाकिस्तान का बॉर्डर था ना, वो तो हॉट बॉर्डर था. वो हॉट बॉर्डर मतलब इतना हॉट है कि उसमें कारगिल था और सियाचिन ग्लेशियर है. वहाँ पे 21,000 की फीट पे जहाँ पे लोग माउंटेनियरिंग करने से कतराते हैं, हमारे लोग बैठे हैं. बिकॉज मिनट यू विकेट हिल कम एंड सिट डाउन देयर. आमने सामने बैठे हैं. हमने आधा किलोमीटर बहुत दूर होगा, कहीं पे 200 मीटर दूर होगा, आमने सामने बैठे हैं. एंड दीज आर हॉट बॉर्डर्स एंड यू कांट टेक अ रिस्पाइट ऑन द पाकि बॉर्डर, बिकॉज उन पे विश्वास नहीं किया जा सकता. एंड जैसे कारगिल में आ गए थे वो. सो you know the Kargil border and the Siachen border, which is AGPL जिसको बोलते हैं ना, actual ground position line, LOC line of control जहाँ ख़त्म होता है J9842, उसके बाद 122 किलोमीटर का सियाचिन ग्लेशियर है. वो ग्लेशियर का जो रिज लाइन है सोल्टोरो, वहाँ वो हम ऊपर बैठे हैं. अच्छा. पाकिज आर डाउन. इन कारगिल ऑल्सो वी आर सिटिंग ऑन टॉप, पाकिज आर डाउन. बट ये है कि नीडलिंग है. आजकल सीज फायर होने के बाद में फायरिंग नहीं है. अच्छा. अर्लियर देयर यूज्ड टू फायरिंग, आर्टिलरी आल्सो यूज्ड टू फायर देयर, बट आजकल फायरिंग नहीं है. बट यू कैन से दैट दैट्स अ हॉट बॉर्डर एंड इट इज कंटिन्यूअसली हेल्ड. टेक द अदर साइड, द चाइनीज साइड. द लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल was not held like this. Line of control was held by matters of patrolling. So we have a base. You send a patrol, he touches your line of control, comes back here. Spend 4-5 days. कोई patrol 10-12 दिन touches many patrol points of a line of control, comes back here. So we were not sitting on the line of actual control.
And I think कारगिल में तो जब वो आ रहे थे तो शायद उनके प्राइम मिनिस्टर को भी पता नहीं था, परवेज मुशर्रफ साहब ने.
That's what he says now. Of course, नवाज शरीफ says कि मेरे को मालूम नहीं था, मुशर्रफ ने भेज दिया, बाद में बताया मेरे को. ये सब यू नो दिस इज फॉर हिस्ट्री टू से सच क्या है, झूठ क्या है. पर लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल, नाउ लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल हैज क्रिएटेड बफर्स.
Okay.
Means, you know, they have said, okay, between your forces, my forces, 2 किलोमीटर का गैप है, ना आप आएंगे ना हम आएंगे. So अब तकरीबन आमने सामने हो गया. So there is a change which has happened on the Chinese border.
Okay. I think Chinese जो हैं they have a long term vision. वो थोड़ा दूर का सोचते हैं. They have global ambition and aspiration. But और हमारे साथ उनकी बॉर्डर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स अभी अनरिजॉल्व्ड है. प्लस you're saying कि दुनिया में 2 सुपर पावर हो सकते हैं, एशिया में नहीं हो सकता है. तो और ये जो इंडिया चाइना में जो ट्रेड हो रहा है, इससे आई थिंक इट्स अ विन विन सिचुएशन फॉर बोथ, क्योंकि उनकी भी कंज्यूमर सैचुरेशन हो गई है. तो और बॉर्डर एक तरफ यहाँ पे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स चल रहे हैं एंड एम्बिशंस भी दोनों के दोनों आई थिंक इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ पे फोकस्ड हैं. तो ये बैलेंस कैसे होगा और क्या यहाँ पे चल रहा है?
So this is a very good question, you know, and a very difficult question. Now, the fact is that the Chinese economy, though it is in trouble lately, but it has done fantastic work.
Obviously.
You know, in last, especially after 2001 when they joined the WTO, Chinese economy has gone, you know, from $1.5 trillion to now it is $18 trillion. It is a very heavy growth. A large percentage of their population has been lifted from poverty upwards. Their cities are beautiful. They are high-speed roads, high-speed railways. They have 2 years of construction, many not occupied. So the Chinese growth model, and they are the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. So the most manufacturing is Chinese, at least 50% odd, and they supply to the world everywhere else. So and they have a large consumer market. They used to have a large consumer market. So Volkswagen boss was crying the other day कि भाई मेरी कारें बिकेंगी नहीं, अब टैरिफ लगा दोगे चाइनीज पे तो वो हमारी कारें. And Germany was selling maximum cars to China. The upmarket cars, the Mercedes, the BMWs, and the Volkswagens. So now that kind of relationship when you have with the world, 126 कंट्री कितनी हैं जिसकी मैक्सिमम ट्रेड चाइना के साथ है. यू कैन इमेजिन 100 तो पोर्ट बना रहे हैं वर्ल्ड वाइड ऑल ओवर. 14-15 पोर्ट तो इंडियन ओशन में है जो चाइनीज बना रहे हैं, और कुछ पोर्ट जो है वो लोग पैसे नहीं दे पाते हैं, वो चाइनीज के ही हो गए, जैसे हनबन टोटा एक बोलते हैं, और जगह जगह पे ऐसे पोर्ट बन रहे हैं. द कंट्रीज आर सो मच ऑफ डेट दैट दे कांट पे बैक. So Chinese have a control. Their economic wars are separate, which are very serious now, especially in the month of September last. It is evident that they have understood that they have got economic problems. $100 billion का उनका trade surplus हर महीने है. अच्छा. So they have the investment money, which no other country can boast on. Correct. On PPP terms, they have crossed United States in 2014. So the Chinese economy is there. जो उनकी अब after COVID and all, after the last 3-4 years, they also said, okay यार हमारी country में जो worker सस्ता था वो worker महंगा हो गया चाइना में. So let's exploit the markets where worker is still cheaper. So Bangladesh, Malaysia, Vietnam most maximally, Indonesia, Thailand. So their industries have also shifted across to those countries. And then there was a BRI by which also the Belt and Road Initiative, which Xi tried in 2013-14, they have invested in infrastructure in Africa, in Latin America, in Europe, large investment, in Asia, even in South Asia, large investment. So they have a global influence created in some kind of a manner. Okay. Now, in all that, if they see now India is rising also economically, and India has growth, and Chinese have an ambition to become the foremost power, or they have a Chinese dream as they call it of 2049. उनके 100 साल हो जाएंगे इंडिपेंडेंस को 2049, उनकी ड्रीम है. हम लोगों की भी ड्रीम है 2047. We want to be a developed nation. Prime Minister Modi has said. Now to achieve to 2049, they have to make sure that there is no competitor worth it. अब इंडिया का लोकेशन भी ऐसा है कि हमारा 2000 किलोमीटर का पेनिनसुला है, which juts into Indian Ocean, where maximum trade, 60% of the trade passes through there. And Chinese are all dependent on oil and etc., which goes through Indian Ocean, either Hormuz, outside Straits of Malacca, it has to pass through that area. So our potential, the peninsula, geographic location, and historically India has been a liked country. हम लोगों ने किसी पे हमला नहीं किया historically. हमारा diaspora, wherever it goes, it works hard. It produces value for those countries that we go to. Correct. We have a respect in Africa, in America, in Europe. As an Indian, he काम करने वाला बंदा है. He'll produce goods. He is not a nasty character firing. ये वो नहीं है. So there is a likability issue which Indians have. All this is Chinese are buying influence. Correct. It is not that they are liked, but they say, okay, I'll make you a stadium. आपको stadium चाहिए, football मैं बना के देता हूँ. आपको rail चाहिए, train चाहिए. So they are buying influence. So there are two. There is a purchase of influence, and there is an inherent influence. There are competitors. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just take a grasp of it. So you're saying that people like India because they just like them, but people follow China because they kind of have to, because of the buying influence activity. And I think जो आपने global aspiration mention किया, इसीलिए शायद अभी इनका जो ऑयल ट्रेड होता है चाइना रशिया, इन लोगों ने डॉलर का यूज़ बंद कर दिया है. देन दे हैव नाउ एक्सेप्टिंग देयर ओन करेंसी. ये इनके बीच में, बट एक तरफ वी आर लुकिंग एट देयर ग्लोबल एम्बिशंस एंड इनके बैकयार्ड में देयर इज़ अ कंप्लीट मैस. आई थिंक दे आर फाइटिंग फिलीपींस, इंडिया के साथ भी चल रहा है. तो हाउ डू यू सी इन द न्यू वर्ल्ड जो सुपर पावर है अमेरिका, is that going to be replaced? Are you suggesting a new country? किसी का ड्रीम सच होगा, and what's happening?
So who can tell the future? Nobody. So I will, everybody and a thinker or an analyst can only perceive as to what things can happen. Chinese economy has floundered internally. Its internal consumer spending has gone down, way down.
Okay.
They have to find consumers outside. Since they're a powerhouse which is dependent, it's an export-oriented economy.
Correct.
Now, of late, many countries, and Chinese have also kind of economic coercion. They do. They signed an FTA with Australia in 2015. 2022 में उनका ऑस्ट्रेलिया से झगड़ा हो गया because of COVID.
Obviously, हाँ.
तो उन्होंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया की इकोनॉमी को सत्यानाश कर दिया. तो 2015 की जो ट्रेड थी, जिसमें बार्ले, बीफ, सोरगम, वाइन, ऑस्ट्रेलियन वाइन, वेरी गुड वाइन्स, दे यूज्ड चाइनीज टू बाय सो मैक्सिमम क्वांटिटीज. कोल 2022 में बोला ओके 200% टैरिफ. सो ऑस्ट्रेलियन इकोनॉमी वेंट फॉर अ 6. 2024 में इस साल द प्राइम मिनिस्टर वेंट देयर एंड फाइनली दे आर एबल टू सॉर्ट आउट एंड दे सेड हमारा गुजारा नहीं. यू कैन डू थिंग्स. Nowadays, there is a tariff war on. It started Trump's time, but it got on now between Europe and between China.
Okay.
Chinese economy was resting largely on infrastructure because वहाँ पे लोग इतना savings नहीं करते थे. They used to buy second house, third house, flats. घर खूब सारे बन रहे थे और वो घर बन रहे थे तो people used to buy and the local governments used to have land was theirs. Everybody leased land and nobody can acquire land. So, the Chinese real estate was a big way. These people became, real estate and e-commerce people became too big for their boots.
Okay.
Alibaba, Tencent, they became very big companies. Alibaba competing with Amazon. Now, President Xi is a red. He's a communist of the...
Very aggressive.
Yeah. So he said no, nothing doing. And there was hanky-panky being done by the real estate companies, these big ones. They were fleecing mortgage rates, all that. So he made life difficult for the these infrastructure.
Okay.
And he must have thought about it. Infrastructure, 30% of GDP was infrastructure. Once you make life difficult for infrastructure, the economy will go for a 6. So they were enjoying 10% growth for 30 years. Unbelievable country in the history of economics in the world. What Chinese have done from 1981 till 2016. Fantastic work. 2010s में उनका GDP growth averaged at 7%. But उससे पहले तो they were averaging at 10%. Yeah. So, there was... जब से उसने infrastructure को थप्पड़ लगाए 4, तो there is a problem out here. But he started an alternative business, which is green energy, which is EVs, solar panels, batteries. And he made subsidy for this one. So 100 companies started making EV vehicles. Electric vehicles. BYD is biggest one, and there are many others. And they were cheaper than Tesla, as good as Tesla. And they flooded the market world with electric vehicles, buses, and there is so much of capacity that he can supply to the entire world.
Correct.
Now the West has put tariffs, strong tariffs. United States 100% tariff. European Union 36% tariff. Now with these tariffs coming in there, it is not cost effective for him to export the green energy, which was the basis of its changing over from real estate infrastructure. And you know, infrastructure का भी एक टाइम आता है ना, जैसे जापान was infrastructure oriented, but 2018 जापान to 80s जापान में भी वो जो glut of infrastructure, रोड बनाने का, ब्रिजेस, वो थोड़ा सहम गया था. तो Japanese economy also crashed down to 2%. Now they are 0.5% growth. जापान का growth इतना ही रहता है. It's a very good economy, but इतना ही growth रहता है.
Very stable.
But 0.5%. We are growing. We claim to be growing at 7% today.
Correct.
Now the Chinese have had a problem here because of the tariff wars, trade wars which are going on between the West and the thing. They have to look for others. So that's why they think BYD will establish in Mexico or in Hungary or in Brazil or in Africa, many countries. So they will sell EV vehicles. तो that is, Americans are saying you made over capacity. आपने ज़्यादा गाड़ियाँ बना दी हैं जितनी चाहिए भी नहीं है. And I think the world has now found that EV is not a simple proposition. Okay. You require charging, you got so many other things. So there is a tariff war on which is hurting the Chinese.
आपने mention किया कि 2016 तक China was performing very well. इसके बाद क्या उनका दिमाग खराब हो गया?
No, firstly Trump came in.
अच्छा.
Trump, and he started the tariff issues. You know, the first trade war started in 2016 with the Chinese, and he started laying tariffs and restrictions to many issues which the Chinese were producing, and Chinese were, because it was clear that after WTO, which they joined in 2001, the Americans helped them to join WTO. एंड दे थॉट कि ये कम्युनिस्ट कंट्री से डेमोक्रेसी बन जाएगा, लोगों के पास पैसा आएगा, जो पैसा आएगा तो लोग खर्चेंगे, होटल में जाएंगे, रेस्टोरेंट में जाएंगे, टूरिज्म करेंगे, सो दे विल बिकम लाइक एनी अदर कंट्री, सो दे विल चेंज. बट चाइनीज डिड नॉट बिकम एनी अदर कंट्री, दे रिमेन्ड दैट सेम country, and now they had money, they had become rich, and they were now competing to say we will cross United States. Graphs were showing 2024 or 2027 में by nominal GDP also USA will be crossed. So USA learnt यार ये ज़्यादा हो रहा है, and I think that tariff wars led to issues here. Then of course they had a very difficult lockdown of the COVID. हम लोगों ने भी लॉकडाउन किया, 2 बार लॉकडाउन हुआ. वी ऑल सफर्ड, आपने देखा है, इंडिया सफर्ड सो मच, एवरी कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड सफर, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स सफर्ड सो मच. बट हमारा जो 2 टाइम के बाद में लॉकडाउन वाज नॉट सो टफ, एंड द इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी स्टार्टेड. वी वर अलाउड, एंड यू नो our what you say, digital stack took off, you know, all these banking, shanking, all that. So things changed over in 2000 in most countries. उनका क्या था, लॉकडाउन वाज सो सिवियर, ही डिडंट वांट टू सी मेनी पीपल डाइंग. पहले शुरू में वुहान में थोड़े विजुअल्स आए थे कि लॉट ऑफ पीपल वर डाइंग, फॉलिंग ऑन द रोड एंड डाइंग. बट उसके बाद में द लॉकडाउन वाज सो डिफिकल्ट, एंड व्हेन इन 2023 व्हेन एक बिल्डिंग में जहाँ पे आग लगी थी, वहाँ फायर टेंडर नहीं जा सके, बिकॉज फायर टेंडर जाने के लिए वो तो कोविड चल रहा था, कोविड रिस्ट्रिक्शन थी. People died of, you couldn't send fire tenders there. Then there were protests in the country, big protests in China. And he relaxed in December 2023. He relaxed most of the 22.
In short, COVID में China की लग गई.
Yeah, उनको whether it started, I mean, we believe it started in China only. There's no other way it could have spread like this. But having said that, they made life so difficult for themselves that it became problem later on now. And to get out of that kind of full stop to industry and economy, to restart is not simple.
Correct. एक चीज़ मैंने नोटिस किया कि जैसे ही हम सुपर पावर्स की बात करने लगे, ग्लोबल बात करने लगे, हमारे पुराने साथी पीछे छूट गए. तो ये जो सुपर पावर की बात आती है, तो वेयर डू यू सी, पाकिस्तान बिल्कुल आउट ऑफ लीग हो गया है, हमारे कद का नहीं रहा, क्योंकि कोई बात ही नहीं हो रही है. तो क्या ये सच है? इंडिया चाइना नया कंपटीशन है, पाकिस्तान इज़ आउट ऑफ द गेम, डिस्क्वालीफाई हो गया, ऐसा कुछ?
सो पाकिस्तान, राजन, इज़ अ वेरी peculiar country. It started in 1947. इंडिया कब स्टार्ट हुआ है? इंडिया हम स्टार्ट करने यार को 5,000 साल बोलता है, कोई 8,000 साल बोलता है। महाभारत, सरस्वती नदी बहती थी,
Yes.
हमारे जो ग्रंथ हैं, किताबें हैं, ऋग्वेद है, 2-2, 3-3, 4,000 साल लिखे हुए किताबें हैं। हमारी एक मूडिंग्स है, एक हमारी स्ट्रेंथ है। एक अशोका था, एक चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य था। दीज पीपल लिव्ड बिफोर क्राइस्ट।
True.
ठीक है ना? क्यों अलेक्जेंडर द ग्रेट 30-31 साल का लड़का था एंड ही केम टू कैप्चर इंडिया? वो क्यों इंडिया में आए? एंड व्हाई इंडिया हैज बीन रेडेड बाय दीज इन्वेजन्स दैट केम फ्रॉम द वेस्ट? बिकॉज इंडिया एग्जिस्टेड 7 times he came, then he took over stuff from Somnath because it was so rich. We were actually a rich country. We have 7. Pakistan started in 1947. तो एक नींव नहीं है,
Correct.
एक कल्चरल नींव नहीं है। हर देश को एक अपनी पहचान की आवश्यकता है।
ठीक है।
हमारी पहचान हमारी हिस्ट्री है, हमारी टॉलरेंस है, हमारी कैपेसिटीज है टू विथस्टैंड पेन एंड स्टिल कम आउट शाइनिंग। मेनी कंट्रीज चेंज ओवर टू इस्लाम। we have 20% of Muslims or something, but we are still 80% Hindus. Yeah, our cultural moorings were so strong. Our religion is so strong. It is not religion. यार मैं मंदिर जाता हूँ, मैं बिलीव करता हूँ, नहीं जाता हूँ, I still believe. मैं जल चढ़ाता हूँ, ठीक है, नहीं चढ़ाता हूँ, ठीक है। I have my faith. I have my faith in हनुमान और कृष्ण और मेरा faith है। हमारे we are different by our own. Our relationship with our gods is different.
ठीक है। तो सर अगर टॉप 3 कंटेंडर्स हम देखें टू बी द न्यू सुपर पावर्स, तो कौन सी 3 कंट्रीज़ को आप मानोगे कि सुपर पावर बन सकता है, एक्सक्लूडिंग यूएस? अगर यूएस को रिप्लेस कर दे।
एक तो है कि जब कोई नया पावर पैदा होना शुरू होता है, देयर आर मेनी अदर्स हु विल वर्क टू मेक श्योर दैट ही डजंट राइज।
ओके।
So you don't want competitors. Rise and Fall of Great Powers, Paul Kennedy की किताब है। There is also, or the tragedy of great power politics, it's that when you have competitors, then you work to make sure the competitors don't rise to that level. India has a potential. We have tremendous potential, tremendous industrious people. We lack technology, but we have the capacities to move on. We have found great strengths in many other issues, and we are doing fantastically well. Our own investments outside India are also tremendous now. So we are there. There is Brazil, which is also growing economy. There is Indonesia, fantastic economy.
What about Russia?
Now, Russia is a $2 trillion economy. It is, at one time, Kissinger said, Russia is a gas station masquerading as a superpower.